So over the last year or so, I have been making Quo-related haul videos for this YouTube channel. Now, this is where I show you things that I have acquired recently that are Quo related. And it struck me recently that I have been collecting Quo for 25 years and I haven't shown you some stuff. And I thought, well, I'm not going to show you from the very beginning because then we're going to get into like albums I've bought and stuff, and I will cover that in other videos like reviews and things. But I thought maybe over the last 5 years I'll show you some things that I have bought and have been sent. So let's start with a Quo album. This is a Quo Stick 2, which I got in 2016 when it first came out. This is the deluxe edition, which has bonus tracks on it. So tracks like Mess of the Blues, Jam Side Down, Lies, Little Dreamer, Living on an Island, and Rockers Rolling, along with a new composition called Is Someone Rocking Your Heart? Now, this is a controversial opinion. I actually think this is better than the first one because I feel it's more inventive. Yeah, okay, Roll Over, Lay Down, and Dear John, and even like In the Army Now, and to a lesser extent That's a Fact, are slightly different from their original incarnations. But the thing is, the first album was criticised for being basically strum-along versions of those original songs. There's a little bit of that on here when you hear things like Jam Side Down, and it's kind of just the same arrangement but with acoustic guitars. But you see, this is the thing. I don't think Jam Side Down in any version of the first album would have been included. The fact that we're hearing versions of things like Little Dreamer and A Mess of Blues, which were singles, you know, one was extremely successful, the other one not so much. Lover of the Human Race is on here. Again, a very underrated track from the Thirsty Work album, done over in a very kind of stripped back style. So I think that the track listing's a little bit more interesting for the hardcore fan, perhaps not the casuals, but the first album was aimed, I think, at the casual fans. Both of them extremely enjoyable. Again, I know that these are very controversial, but I do like this one and I have no regrets about picking it up. Let's continue on the Quo merch. This is the 2016 re-release of, was it 2016? Yeah, it was around there, wasn't it? 2015, 2016 re-release of Status Quo's Rocking All Over the World album. Now, I did already own this, but I owned the 2005 version, which is good. It definitely has slightly better sound than the original, because the original at times is a bit thin, but you know, they were going for a thing. And this album, like the remastered version is on here, but really it's the Rocking All Over the World remixed by John Eden that people bought this for, which improves on it no end. Suddenly there are frequencies there that weren't there previously, and guitars are a bit higher in the mix, and Rockers Rolling on here, and a couple of other tracks like Hold You Back, for example, are just sublime. So if you haven't got this, I do recommend picking it up. And if you're just discovering the podcast, go and look for the audio feed, which I'll put in the description below, and you can hear me talking to producer John Eden about remixing Rockin' All Over the World. So one last piece of Quo recording history. Now, this was actually sent to me by a viewer and a listener of the podcast. Thank you to them, because they heard me say in my top 10 Quo albums video that I didn't have this on vinyl and I would like it. So thank you to them for sending it to me. This is Aint Complaining from 1988, and I was delighted when this came. And obviously the first thing you'll notice is that there is a mark there, which I assume is from exposure to light. Perhaps it was kept somewhere and this was like the little bit of light that was getting in. Perhaps it was already there to begin with. It doesn't matter, because to me, it's just owning a copy of this album was important, because it's one of my favorites from this period. Now, the music on here, I was amazed at how my perception of this album changed, because I have the 2005 remaster with all the bonus tracks on it, like Reason for Goodbye and, you know, all the B-sides from the era. It's amazing how it changes your perception, because you're hearing all the material they did in that era in context, which I really liked. This album, however, there are some great tracks on here that I really like Every Time I Think of You, which in my interview with Rhino, he felt it was unfinished. I can see where he's driving at. I personally really like it. I think it would have done really well on the radio around the time that this was released, as is with Another Shipwreck, which is an Andy Bowen composition. I have sung praises about that song for years. If you think of it in the 80s context, it's got a hit written all over it. I could imagine somebody like Phil Collins doing that and it being an absolute smash. Obviously, there's a few what people would describe as clunkers on here. I know some people don't like The Loving Game and Magic, and there's even some detractors from things like Who Gets the Love and Burning Bridges, one of which, again, was a really popular single and one which didn't do so well, but the music video for both is pretty good. So thanks once again to the person who sent me this, because it takes pride of place in my collection of Quo albums. So now let's go to the non-Quo stuff, but still Quo related. Let's start with this one. They're both from Cherry Red Records. This is Bob Young, Back in Quo Country. This is an album that Bob Young recorded in the mid-80s, which contains Quo songs that he helped write in a Quo Country style. And I think there are tracks here that definitely demonstrate the shift. Things like Mean Girl, that kind of hoedown section in the middle is just amazing. And I love his take on things like Can't Give You More. Claudie has always had that country flavour to it. Shady Lady, I Saw the Light. I love the kind of doo-woppy thing that they're doing on that. I just find it a really enjoyable listen, because you're hearing the compositions in a different light. Obviously, you've got bonus tracks on here where some of them originate from Young and Moody. I feel that Cherry Red have aimed at the Quo fan, obviously, because we've got The Devil Went Down to Georgia with Francis Rossi very audibly on backing vocals, and another version of Caroline, and of course the Down Down recording session as well. It's still available on Cherry Red Records. I highly recommend it if you're a Quo fan or just a fan of the songs in general. I will leave the link in the description below. So another Cherry Red Records release from a year later, the previous one 2017, this 2018, John Coughlin's Diesel, Flexible Friends. There were many tracks recorded by the band who changed its members regularly, and finally it's seen a release. I love songs like Turn Me Loose, River of Tears, and Chained to Love, which has been performed by the Young and Moody band a few times. There's lots of crossover actually with the previous release and this one. And I must say as well, I got this fairly recently, and the packaging is amazing. So we've got the booklet with lots of information in it, nice images, and then we have in kind of slip cases, cardboard cases, the first CD, which is like the album, including the single versions of River of Tears and No Moonshines. Then we have 2 CDs of the marquee gig which is kind of infamous in the Quo camp because this is the Diesel band gig at the famous Marquee Club where Alan Lancaster and Rick Parfitt played a few numbers with them. So you have Jackie Linton on vocals, and you get to hear a few songs with the Diesel band with John Coughlin on drums, and then Rick and Alan come on and do a few Quo numbers. I would have liked the video in addition to this, and initially when I first got this I was kind of disappointed with the audio, but you listen on the right setup and you get used to the sound, because I assume it was recorded on sort of a home video camera. Once you get used to that sound, you'll just be thankful that it exists, and I think it goes with the kind of vibe of the rest of it, that this wasn't like an ultra professional operation. It was just kind of a bit of fun, you know, something that they did, and that joy comes out in the live performance as well as the recordings. I mean, the playing on it is top notch, and of course I would have liked the video, but there might have been concerns about the quality of the image because of its source. But there we are, that is still available on Cherry Red Records. Go and check it out. I'll leave a link in the description below. So lastly, we have Rick Parfitt, Over and Out, the band's mix. Now, for those that know, there were two versions of this posthumous album released in 2018, the produced version and then this one, which has a slightly different drum sound. It's a bit raw, it's a bit less produced, and some people prefer this over the produced version. I like a mixture of the two. I think some songs work on here, some songs don't. I think they need that polished edge, but I really like this album, period. I think this album is amazing, and I have this version, but I don't have the polished version on record. I remember I was going to, and then forces intervened and I wasn't able to get a copy. But one day I will get a copy of that album, because the cover art obviously is different. We've got Rick's trademark guitar in here, whereas the other one is him in denim, and obviously that famous necklace that he wore. Both, I think, represent what Rick Parfitt was all about. I know some people didn't like this album. I really loved it. I thought it showcased several parts of Rick's musical facet. We had some slow numbers. There were some sort of Quo-like numbers like Lonesome Road. And then I love like Fight for Every Heartbeat, and the title track Over and Out is heart-wrenching, beautiful, and just, I don't know. There were some things going on in my life at the time this came out, and this really spoke to me. Do you have this album? Do you have the other one? Or are you strictly on CD? Normally with a lot of the modern Quo releases, I tend to just stick to CD, mainly for cost reasons, but it is nice to have a modern Quo related thing on vinyl. So that is my catch-up haul video of things that I have got within the last 5 years or so. Have you got any of these releases that I've talked about? Let me know in the comments below.